And now I'd like to introduce Christina Cabrera from Native Green. I'm so glad it didn't rain today. Hi, Christina. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's wonderful to be here. I'm a member of Native Green. It's an honor to be here with y'all celebrating Indigenous Day, Rhode Island. This is what we should be celebrating. All of us, all in Turtle Island. Unfortunately, there are some interests, special interests that would want to celebrate otherwise, and they have erected a statue across the street of William Blackstone. Our demand, the statue needs to come down. Indigenous Peoples Day needs to be official in the city of Pawtucket, and it should be throughout Turtle Island. We should not be celebrating colonizers who came and took over land that was not theirs. I'm also a resident of Pawtucket, and some of the spokespeople who were involved with erecting the statue say, oh, well, this is a project that has been going on for like 2 years, and others even 5 years. In all those years, none of the residents of Pawtucket were reached out. There was a community development block grant overseen by HUD. Monies were applied for, and $1.8 million in infrastructure, beautification, bike path, and canoe launch were the excuse to build around on private property. Louis Yip, the businessman owning Puyo Corporation, across the street on his private property, all these federal dollars were injected to beautify his land, his property, and by the way, there's a statue that was erected, which was never mentioned in the grant. And so there is a great conflict of interest right there, where tax dollars and the city of Pawtucket comes in partnership with corporate interests to promote a narrative that came all the way from the 1400s, 1600s, all the way to today, where we're going to take over the land, we're going to dictate how the history is going to go, we're going to dictate how the narrative is going to be read and written and promoted, and we're going to put it in your face by erecting this statue here. So it is quite sad as a resident of Pawtucket, as an Indigenous person. There is no respect and no transparency, no reaching out to and following proper public comment process and reaching out to Narragansett Council. We didn't know. The excuses were several. Mayor Grebien, we didn't know. We thought that somebody else was reaching to the Narragansett Tribal Council. Well, you're spending $1.8 million. You can't delegate those things to anybody else. You're responsible. It's your administration. City Council women and City Council people didn't know about this statue. How is that possible? So the administration doesn't talk to council, to City Council? There is a disconnect there too. there is a secrecy around this? Oh, well, no, they should have seen the application to the grant. Well, the application to the grant didn't mention a statue. It didn't mention that you were going to use HUD dollars. Oh, and by the way, we're going to get a statue in there. None of that. And so how is City Council supposed to know? How is supposed to know? Residents, well, there was a historian who raised some issues with the erection of William Blackstone. And so we posted in the Tourism Council website, we posted, we left it open for comment. Well, I'm not a tourist, I'm a resident of Pawtucket. Why am I going to go to the Tourism Council website to find out information about Pawtucket? Oh, well, like 5 years later, in the spring of this year, the Valley Breeze published an article. Well, first of all, you're not notifying us. You need to engage the public. Needs to be a public process because this is public works. There's federal law where you're creating this whole thing about beautification and canoe launch and bike path and all that stuff. You need to engage the community. And there's also federal law that requires that you engage the Narragansett, the Aboriginal people of the land, wherever you're doing this public work. And in this case, in Narragansett Tribe, there is international law, United Nations, the UNDRIP, Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, which was adopted by the United States. Free, prior, and informed consent. You need to reach out. You have a responsibility. Oh, so now Donald Grebien, the mayor, is like contacting an attorney to see. We follow a process, but just in case, we'll show you that we're okay. We didn't breach any law. Well, there's always some excuse, and there's always a narrative behind wanting to sustain and maintain and promote the doctrine of discovery, later known as manifest destiny. But here is a preacher who preached, and actually also at the invitation of Roger Williams, several times. While there were differences in perspectives, there was this one pervasive thing that this coming to this land was the freedom for them to have their belief system, that it was destined by God, blessed by God, God-driven, and they could take over the land where no Christians were living and settled. And it was something that they felt entitled to. Now, William Blackstone, 200 acres, and 60 other acres of meadows owned in Providence. So doesn't that tell you how he took over land? Doesn't that tell you, you don't have to have something written about him. His actions speak louder than words. He came here uninvited. He didn't leave. He took land. He settled. He helped Boston. He helped establish Boston and aided and abetted with all his preaching of the doctrine of discovery to continue that worldview to this day. To this day, Indigenous people, their faith, their culture, their history, their whole beings are trying to be erased. And we see it with the construction of Providence Mall, desecrating Indigenous graves, just like I-95. We see it with the inability to access the ocean and waterfront, which is the sacred place, the sacred space of Narragansett Indian tribe, not being able to hold their sacred ceremonies. Instead, it's private property. So it's that relationship to the land of owning and commodifying and monetizing and privatizing that is the mindset of this narrative that brings us to today. There is no understanding of how to live in right relationship with the land, how to honor the land, and how to be part of the land. And for that alone, that statue should not be there. We cannot be celebrating in a time when you have climate crisis, In a time where you have climate crisis, the climate crisis is a crisis of relationship, not understanding how to live in right relationship with Mother Earth and with every living being. That's what the climate crisis is. It's not a carbon crisis. It's not understanding how to live in right relationship with the land. And you're celebrating right now the opposite. Someone who came, settled, privatized, owned the land, controlled it, and took it away and displaced Indigenous Aboriginal people from this land. We cannot go back to the Middle Ages, Mayor Grebien. You are responsible. Take this statue down. It needs to come down. And you need to establish Indigenous Peoples Day instead of Columbus Day. Do it now.